So it's the start of 2016, and that means it's time for the obligatory look back on 2015 and my top 10 of 2015. Now, the first thing I'd like to do actually is just take a minute and comment on the fact that to me, 2015 was an amazing year for films. I had so much trouble compiling my top 10, more trouble than I think I've ever had. And that's purely because of the sheer amount of quality films I saw. I was trying to jam about 15 films into 10 spaces and essentially break maths. Not easy to do, and I failed. But if 2016 is anywhere near as good as 2015, we're in for a damn good time as far as I'm concerned. I am hoping my top 10 list for 2016 is a complete nightmare. That would be fantastic. It means I've had a hell of a year for films. The other thing to point out is the fact that I live in the UK. There are certain films that didn't come out in the UK in 2015. Things like The Revenant, things like Hateful Eight, things like Spotlight. I have heard brilliant things about these films, but they didn't come out in 2015 in the UK. They just didn't. Hence, they can't be on this list. Similarly, there are certain films which in other countries, mainly America, were released in 2014. But in this country, they were released in 2015. Hence, they might be on this list. Hint, a couple of them are. The final thing is, just to point out, this list is really obviously subjective. This is my opinion. Your opinion will be different. There are probably films on my list that you don't like. So, there's going to be things that you think definitely should have been in the top 10. One thing almost guaranteed you'll think should have been in the top 10. That's what makes this great. Fantastic. You love films that I didn't. You love films that I hated. My mate certainly did. He bloody likes Furious 7. Ugh, I hate that bloody film. But anyway, this is my list. It is subjective. Yay for human personalities. Your list is probably completely different. This is me. With that in mind, there are a couple of honourable mentions. As I say, I couldn't fit everything into the top 10, very obviously. So in terms of honourable mentions, we have Spy, funniest film I saw last year. The Martian, absolutely loved it. Inherent Vice, God, that was close to making this list. No one else apparently liked it as much as I did, but I loved it. And the one that is going to piss off everyone, Star Wars The Force Awakens, is not in my top 10. I'm not doing this to be contrarian. I'm not doing this for any reason other than I really liked Star Wars. I had a great time with Star Wars. But if I'm honest, as I say, 2015 was an amazing year for films. And the fact is, there's at least 10 films that I enjoyed even more than Star Wars. I'm not ragging on it. I really like that film. And of course, I'm going to get it on Blu-ray immediately. But there are 10 films I enjoyed even more and had an even better time with. And with that being said, here's my top 10. Kingsman: The Secret Service is a Bond film that me, as someone who really doesn't like Bond films, loved. Because this thing has its tongue so firmly lodged in its cheek. It knows it's being silly. It knows it's borderline a parody. And I loved it for it. It's so self-referential, but at the same time, god damn, this has some good action scenes. That church scene is so wonderful. I loved it. You've got brilliant violence, some of the best violence that's been on screen this year, combined with Freebird, which is one of my favourite songs of all time. Loved it. That film gets in the top 10 just for that scene. Song of the Sea, I think, will have flown under a lot of people's radars just because it wasn't a very big film. However, for me, this is one of the most visually beautiful films I have ever seen. It just kind of felt like a really sort of warm blanket being wrapped around me, and I just let it all wash over me and enjoyed myself in the cinema for 90 minutes, just sitting back, relaxing, and letting this absolute visual feast unfurl in front of me. The Tale of Princess Kaguya is Ghibli at its best. It really is. This film made me laugh my head off and made me cry my eyes out, pretty much in equal measure actually. And any film that can do that gets a place in my heart, because that's what I go to the cinema for, to have that emotion instilled in me. Any film that can do that to me, I absolutely love. Black Mass delivered one of the best returns to form that I've seen from any actor in a long time. Johnny Depp is virtually unrecognisable as James Whitey Bulger, the incredibly violent South Boston crime lord. This film was directed with real skill, not shirking away from the violence and creating and maintaining the tension needed in a film like this, in a drama, gangster drama. And this is, in my mind anyway, one of the, if not the best performance of Depp's career, and I really hope it sees him going back into those serious roles that he can do, and this proves that he can do. The biggest compliment I can give Inside Out is the fact that this was the first Pixar film that for me rivaled and actually eclipsed Toy Story. This now, for me personally, is the best Pixar film. It looks gorgeous, as all Pixar films do, so polished. But this is a film that had a genius concept, such a good concept, and actually delivered properly on it. It tugs at the heartstrings at the right moment and effectively does so, and the rest of it is an absolutely wild ride. If you don't smile at this film, there's something wrong with you. There just is. John Wick is brilliant, and I'm still not massively sure why. Because it's Keanu Reeves, and Keanu Reeves remains not the world's best actor, and that is still the case in this film. And it has some of the most ridiculously delivered dialogue ever. Oh. But despite that, I've seen this film so many times since I got it on Blu-ray. I got it as soon as I could on Blu-ray, and I've watched it a lot of times, because it's from start to finish just high octane adrenaline rush, and sometimes that is what you want. Also, thankfully, it is directed properly in that you can actually see what's happening. In all these shootouts, you can see what's happening. It feels real, it feels raw, it feels visceral, and I love it for that. Birdman is one of the most unique yet still mainstream films that I think I've ever seen. It's such a welcome return to form for Michael Keaton, who I've always liked Michael Keaton, even thought it was cool to. But he is brilliant in this film, along with Edward Norton playing essentially a parody of himself, yet still pulling it off somehow. It works on so many levels and actually does genuinely work on those levels, as well as being shot just brilliantly. This was true, unique filmmaking, and I'm so impressed with it, quite frankly. I'm impressed with everyone who was involved with it, because in every single element they knocked it out of the park. Sicario kind of came out of nowhere for me. I literally saw the poster and saw the cast on it and just thought, bloody hell, that looks good. Might have to go and see that. And ended up seeing the tensest thriller I've seen all year by a long way, and one of the tensest I've ever seen. What I love most about this film is that it explores the grey areas. Nothing is black and white. Nothing is true, good and evil. There's no white knights coming to save the day, because they don't exist. People do bad things because they believe the ends justify the means. And I love it when any film explores things like that, explores the grey areas, explores the middle ground, explores those nastier sides of the human personality. Coupled with that, brilliant direction, brilliant cinematography, and some brilliant performances. Emily Blunt, absolutely wonderful, as normal, frankly, but she's really starting to solidify that action, that lead action role. Started with Edge of Tomorrow and now with Sicario as well. But Benicio del Toro needs recognition for this performance because he is stunning in it, and I really hope this acts as a springboard, a platform for him to go on and get other leading roles, because he's proved with this that he can pull it off. He is brilliant in this, and it's a brilliant film. I'll be honest, numbers 1 and 2 on this list have gone a lot of times over the last few weeks. And this is one of those occasions where, honestly, the fact that one is number 1 and one is number 2 really shouldn't make that much difference. Because, put simply, both of these films are now pretty much in my top 10 of all time. I think they are both that good. They're completely different films, but they are both probably all-time top 10 for me. So the fact that one is number 1, one is number 2, this time it doesn't really make that much of a difference, if I'm honest. With that being said, here's number 2. In the months leading up to Mad Max Fury Road, I was just hoping it wasn't going to be crap, because I think we'd all heard about, the stories of development hell, the shooting problems, the production problems. So I was just hoping it wasn't going to be complete rubbish. Then I started hearing rumours, started hearing stories that actually this is good. This is really good. Then I went to see it in IMAX 3D, and I had my tiny little mind blown, completely blown, because this has a shout at being the greatest action film that's ever been made. It just does. It's that good. From start to finish, it is just non-stop brilliant action. The thing that I find most impressive actually about this film is the fact that, with a couple of small breaks, this is essentially one long car chase film, realistically, and yet the final minute feels just as fresh as the first minute in terms of the vehicular violence and combat. That's really hard to do. To keep it fresh that entire way, that is really hard to do. And George Miller, this is his baby, and it's now his absolute masterpiece, and he deserves so much credit for it because he has done an incredible job. Couple that with Tom Hardy as Mad Max is stoic, because that's what Mad Max is. But Charlize Theron as Furiosa, this is her film, and she steals it. She is brilliant. She is a true modern day heroine, in the same light as a Ripley, for example. I think it's a really good comparison, her and Ripley. I just think she makes this film completely. She's the heart of this film, but she's the goddamn balls of it as well. She was a total badass. Heading a cast of oddballs, shall we say, but brilliant oddballs. And Nux, I just love Nux, completely love him. And finally with Mad Max, that sandstorm again in IMAX, that's going to stay with me for a long, long time. Up until about 2 weeks before I saw Ex Machina, I'd never actually heard of it. It literally came up the trailer one day in my sort of YouTube recommended for you things, and I thought, oh, that looks interesting. Clicked on it, and then thought, okay, that looks good. That looks really good. Then I went to see it, and I came out of the cinema with my friend, went to the car park, and we then spent the next 20 minutes standing next to our cars, gushing about how good we thought that film was, and the fact that we simply didn't want to hear anyone who had flaws with it, criticisms of it, anything like that. Because as far as we were concerned, and it stands today, it was one of the best films either of us had ever seen. That is how good Ex Machina is. This film, it's technically a sci-fi, but it's because it's dealing with AI and stuff, but it's so much more than that. It deals with it in such a clever way, in such a small scale, with only 3 main characters. There technically is a 4th, but only 3 main characters. But it is dealing with so many ideas and on so many levels. It may be technically a sci-fi film, but it is making you think about what it is to be human, what physical beauty is, what emotional beauty is. It's absolutely superb. The fact it's a directorial debut blows my fucking mind, quite frankly. That's just not even fair. I just don't see how this could be someone's directorial debut. That's just ridiculous. Combine that with fantastic performances. You've got Domhnall Gleeson, Oscar Isaac and Alicia Vikander. Domhnall Gleeson and Oscar Isaac are great, but the fact is Alicia Vikander steals the show as Ava. I had never heard of her before 2015, but she's going to be a star, a complete star. And if she didn't work as Ava, if she had been bad as Ava, this film falls apart because she is the glue that's holding it together. But she was superb. She was perfect. She was, it's not many times you can say that, but she was actually perfect in this role as Ava. Simple as that. The last thing I'll say, because I don't want to just spend 20 minutes gushing about it, because believe me, I could. I've done it before. All I'll say is, I'm not going to spoil it, but the ending. I've spoken to people since seeing the film and they've gone, oh, I saw it coming. I didn't. I didn't at all. And when I saw the ending, all I could think of, oh my God, they've done it. Thank you so much, they've done it. I was so happy with what they did with the ending. Really, the ending was as good as the rest of the film. I thought it may not be, I really did. But they did it. And the fact that the ending was as good as it was made this film one of my favourite of all time. And that's why it's my #1 film of 2015.